Obesity, a crisis that's sweeping the globe. In the UK, a third of the population aged between 5 and 11 are obese. Obesity can be caused by two main factors, which is either self-inflicted or can be medical related.
Obesity means basically people or someone who has eaten to an excess and got themselves into an unhealthy stage of weight, where it can cause various health problems and things like that. You know what I mean? Like, if you have an age and then the average weight class, they exceeded that to a limit that's, yeah.
I think it's quite a difficult area to define, but there are parameters where people's body mass index can be calculated. Certainly in urban deprived areas, in areas in which I work here in South East London, we have quite a lot of people who are quite obese, and they have potentially or real quite serious health issues.
Okay, well, in its simplest form, to me, obesity means being overweight to the point where it's unhealthy for your body.
It's quite a complicated issue. I think there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. So you could look at it as a health issue, predominantly, obviously, where I think actually it's not a lot of people's faults for it. I think there's circumstances as to why people are increasingly becoming more obese, but predominantly it's a health issue that is becoming more and more worrying, and people more are dying basically because of such the problem. And it's not just in this country, it's globally, it's becoming more of an issue, or to do with kind of the western side of the world, you know, the kind of rich part of the world. But also it's a kind, I personally feel, is a kind of a mental issue as well, to some extent. Compulsion, really, the compulsion to eat and kind of a little bit of laziness, but there's certainly issues to do with self-control and a willingness, I think.
I don't think they're really targeted enough, to be honest. Like, you don't really hear much about obesity these days. Like, it's more over things like feminism and things like that. Like, it's more of a, I don't know, I think it's left out. It used to be in the media a lot more, I think, and awareness was raised a lot more in earlier stages, but now I don't think it's really looked upon. But like, there is various TV shows that obviously show people like what obesity is and how it's affecting people, like, but I don't really think it's seen as a bad thing these days, you know what I mean? Because people with benefits, there's no like real incentive to get out of that, because you get, like, if you can't move, like if you're obese to a point that you're disabled kind of, then you get like benefits, and it just shows, you know, programs that literally show them in a way that they get money for being the way they are, and it just gives them no incentive really to get out of the position they're in. So yeah, I think it's quite a bad perception from the media.
I think it's becoming a public health issue. It's also, sadly, an area where the media sometimes beats people up, often on socioeconomic grounds. I think all of us, whether it's the media, public health, just our local communities, need to try and assist people in trying to think how we could eat better. And also, I think there's a definite issue around legislating the food manufacturers to say what they're putting into food to try and help people to make better choices.
Well, I think the media view on obesity is sort of interesting in the sense that on one side they're sort of they tend to demonise people who are obese in the sense that they see them as lazy, unwilling to work and unwilling to lose weight. But then on the other side, the same kind of newspapers that carry that kind of story tend to run a lot of offers for free food, coupons, vouchers for kind of absolute junk. So there's a kind of strange thing where they sort of encourage that lifestyle, but at the same time demonise the people who then go forth and live that lifestyle. I think that it's getting better, and there's a bit more understanding about the fact that sometimes there might be genetic influences rather than just sort of mental or diet.
I believe has some extent. Their job is basically to report the problems, and the problems are already out there. So they're just mostly they are just doing their job by expressing what is going on and the fact that there is a crisis. But they don't help by sort of exemplifying unrealistic body expectations. You know, in these magazines and online. You know, even if you go online to any kind of clothing shops and you look at the models, they have almost always been photoshopped to look smaller than they are, so that the clothes look better on them, but actually when you buy the dress and you're like, what is this? This is just doesn't look like it did online. And that's kind of deliberate, really, of these big marketing campaigns. So the media has a lot to answer for in creating this kind of fake body image. But at the same time, you've got like news corporations who are kind of making aware the issues that are going on there, and they are reporting this accurately because it is such a problem. So you can blame the media to a certain extent in terms of kind of promoting false body image, but at the same time they are also sort of presenting it in a correct way that it is a crisis and it needs to be solved.
I think there's no doubt over the last 20-30 years that the issue of stick-thin models has become a major problem and becomes an issue for girls who try to emulate them. And certainly in my experience, there's no doubt there are significant numbers of girls who were contemporaries of my daughter at school who got themselves into a terrible mess based on body image issues. So I think that's something we need to turn around, and the issues of very low weight models is horrific, and I think like some countries that should be banned.
I think the media has created an ideal body image for both men and women, but I think I don't think this is anything new. I mean, if you look back, sort of Roman Greek statues, they're always what was of the time considered the peak of physical conditioning. I think that humans in general like to aspire to the best that they can be in terms of aesthetic attraction. So, you know, actors like Brad Pitt will get paid the most money. It's not necessarily because he's a good actor. It's also rolled into that is the fact that he's very attractive and he's got a sweet six-pack. So I think there's kind of there's different elements there. The media definitely do it, but I think people want them to do it. I think people prefer to look at people who are very well toned or in good condition. And if you know, even for me, I don't consider myself a particularly vain person, but if I had someone advertising me clothing or sunglasses, I want to aspire to look like they do in this advert. I'm not necessarily going to be attracted to the product if the person who is modelling it looks how I wouldn't want to look, if that makes sense.
So are you saying the media do it to make people motivated to achieve an ideal body image?
No, I don't think they do it to make people motivated. I do it to sell people the lie of being able to achieve an ideal body image by doing something simple, such as buying a brand of clothes or a type of car even, that actually is completely unrelated to how you look physically. I think it's sort of an advertising strategy to tell people they'll be happy if they buy a product. I don't think they have any interest in actually making people look as good as the people in the advertisements.
Yeah.
I don't know. Definitely, I wouldn't put like some super skinny model in like a Vogue magazine. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, people are expected to have their own sort of personal image. You know what I mean? But if you stick a super skinny model on a Vogue magazine, and then or like an ASOS magazine, like something more realistic, people are going to think, oh, I really like that, but I don't look like that, you know what I mean? And then they'll feel pressured into getting to that body image. But that would be okay if the models weren't so skinny to tackle things like obesity, because people that are obese, that could be an incentive, you know what I mean, to get to that, to look like that. But they shouldn't feel pressure to get to that stage. I mean, like, I know people that are getting like really conscious and going over the top, like anorexic, you know what I mean? And that's not the situation you want to be in. You just want to get out of that obesity category and into the healthy category. You don't, like, what's that fitness, Davina? Do you know Davina? I don't know a second name. But yeah, that she promotes a healthy figure, you know what I mean? She promotes a healthy body image, and she never does it to the point where it would pressure people to get to that stage, you know what I mean? She was always helping and offering tips and offering diets to get to that.
Well, I think that in the media, obesity is mainly portrayed in a negative way, with the likes of Katie Hopkins being a complete bitch about it. And I also think, in terms of wider society, that models should be of a whole spectrum of sizes, because it reflects the society they're representing.
I think it depends where you look, but mainly like they present an ideal body, which is for men usually muscly, for women it's very skinny. I think Daily Mail is like very guilty of like fat shaming, if that makes sense. That's a horrible way to say it, but yeah, it's very much guilty of that.
I think they put it in a bad way, like they perceive it as in a bad way.
Why do you think that?
Because they make out that like, because I think like where like people are like, I don't know how to explain it, like you know, like models and that, because they're like so skinny.
You have to be thin to be a model.
Yeah.
I think it's both. There is no doubt that obesity has significant medical impact on patients, but obviously people's lifestyle choices in terms of how they eat, how they exercise, will have an effect on how they gain weight and keep weight on. But certainly in terms of the medical side of it, there are a whole host of medical conditions which result from people being overweight.
I think there's like various factors you need to like consider, because people, it could be self-inflicted, but also the reasons behind it. There could be psychological reasons why that person, because people always have their vices. Like some people turn to smoking, some people turn to gambling for an addiction, and people turn to, when something drastic's happened in their life, they can turn to food as a comfort factor. So that person may be obese just because a family member has passed, or something detrimental has happened to the financial situation at home or something like that. And then there's the other side of things where people just eat because they feel like eating and they like it and they've got no real reason to. And then you've got medical conditions where people can literally have like no metabolism whatsoever, and they just, everything they put on. And then you've got lazy people who don't exercise. But yeah, like there's different factors to it. There's a lot of, it's like a really wide subject. Like, yeah, there's loads of different factors to why someone will be obese and how they got.
It's hard. I'm not a scientist, so I don't really know. But I think it's probably a mixture. I do think some people are probably more susceptible than others, but it's environmental as well. That's probably what I think it is.
I think, well, first of all, I'd like to say I don't know. I'm not an expert in the area. But I think that there is probably a mix of both. I think some people are probably medically afflicted, and I think some people are probably lazy.
I think it's like both. Like some people, it is like a mental thing, like they can't help it, but some people are just lazy.
Alright, cheers, thank you.
I think like what people might call self-inflicted could be actually an emotional thing, which isn't like genetic, but it is like, it's not necessarily their fault, like it's an emotional reaction, like comfort eating and stuff. But I do think like it's in some people's genetics that they're going to have like a different metabolism or something.
So, do I think it's self-inflicted or do I think it's medical? I think it's both. I think it's more self-inflicted than it is medical. But if you think about things like thyroid deficiency, which my mother has, she basically finds it really difficult to lose weight because she's got an overactive or underactive thyroid, whichever one it is. And it basically is a gland that doesn't work properly. It can't digest the food and break it down as quickly as it should be. So you put on weight, or you find it very hard to put on weight, to lose weight basically, because it slows your metabolism down. So there are genuine illnesses that I think do sort of slow down weight loss, but I think it's both self-inflicted and medical.